started. Takes a second or two, as I'm sure you know, to load up on Facebook. So we should be just about there. And let's see. Cool. And we are actually live. What's up, everybody? What's up, good people? It's the Impact Chaser, Leroy McKenzie Jr. Y'all know how we do. This is live. This is live. This is live. I want to welcome everybody. Y'all come on in. Come on in. Come on in. I need y'all to like and share this, please, because we have a phenomenal event that we're going to be talking about in 1 second. And this young lady to my left, I think it maybe on the screen it might be to my right, but looking at the screen to my left. But anyway, we're here to talk about this great event that's going to be coming up next week. And I'm going to let her. She is the creator, the innovator, the visionary behind this event, Rethinking the Church. So we're going to get right into the conversation, because y'all know how I do. I like to get right to it. So I need y'all to like and share as y'all go along. Y'all can learn about, y'all can tell a friend, start the watch party, all those good things, so that you all can begin to learn about what we're getting ready to talk about, the Rethink the Church virtual summit that's coming up next week. And this is none other than Miss LaKesha Womack. Welcome, Miss LaKesha. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited that you are not only doing this, but you are also a part of the Rethinking Church Virtual Summit. So don't forget that small little detail, that you are one of our presenters. So thank you so much for being a part of this movement that we're creating.
I love it. I love it. I like what you just said, a part of this movement, because that's exactly what this is. So before we get started and talk about the virtual summit that's coming up, let's tell the people just a little bit about who you are, and then we'll get into where the Rethink the Church vision came from, and all of that, and then get into the information that the people can learn about the summit that's coming up next week.
Okay, perfect. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Reverend LaKesha Womack. I'm still getting used to the ordination part, but for some people, it's important to know that I have that background when I'm talking about Rethinking Church. I'm an ordained minister in the AME Zion Church. I previously served as our connectional chairperson of young adult ministry, and that's when I really had a chance to travel around the country and look at how churches are doing ministry, developed a lot of ecumenical relationships to see that the problems within our denomination are not unique to our church, that churches across the globe, different denominations, non-denominations, are struggling with some of the same issues, and have just been in deep prayer to God about, how do we make the shift that needs to happen so that we can reach the people that God has called us to reach. And so that's how we got to where we are.
Absolutely, absolutely. Phenomenal. That is phenomenal. So that's just a little bit about who you are. But now let's talk about why we're here today. And can you tell us a little bit, just where did the idea of rethinking the church virtual summit, where did that come from? What made you think about doing something like this?
So Rethinking Church actually started as a presentation that I was doing just encouraging churches to rethink how they minister, how they do discipleship work, how they basically do everything. Because so many churches are so steeped in religion and tradition that they don't think about how does that translate into the current society. And then it became a workbook. So there's actually a Rethinking Church workbook that churches can utilize. Then I did a webinar series, and then COVID hit. And I was traveling around 15 days per month pre-COVID. When I was basically like sidelined and starting to do like more virtual work, and I realized that a lot of churches were canceling conferences. They were canceling bringing in presenters because, you know, we couldn't be in physical space. And so me and one of my friends were talking, and we're like, you know, what if we did this conference and we did a virtual event and brought together, you know, speakers on all these different topics that churches really need to be thinking about. And she was like, yeah, what can I do to help? And I'm like, I'm glad you asked. And so we put it together, and I don't know if she knew exactly what she was getting into when she signed on, but we've been rolling ever since.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's great. And there is, like you said, there is a need for the church to be kind of I call it shifted, because of what is, you know, us going through this COVID-19 and us being in this new kind of space that we are in the middle of 2020. And to be honest, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So the church, just like all the rest of us, needs to be able to shift and adjust to what, you know, to what it's doing and how it's doing. And I've said this, that the message doesn't change. It's just the means of getting the message out there has changed. Not even say change, but kind of added on to, because there have been many churches that were in this virtual realm that we're in, but not exclusively just in the virtual realm, because we were able to, like you said, go into the physical building and all of those things. But now we are exclusively virtual right now, and for the time being and everything like that. So give the dates of the of the summit, and then let's talk about who the summit is for and who should attend.
Okay. So we kick off next Tuesday, July 21st, and it is a 4-day event. So we will conclude on Friday, the 25th. We are only running from 10 until around 4 o'clock. So it's not like an all day, all night event, because I know people have a life and they have other stuff that they want to do. So we're just, you know, going during the day. And the summit is really designed for ministry leaders who are interested in learning from professionals who are doing this work. So that was one of the things when we were looking at who the speakers would be. We wanted to find people who are already either consulting, or they have courses, or they have books on this, and they're subject matter experts, because the goal is not just for people to come and listen to these presentations and be like, wow, that sounded really good, but to connect people with professionals. So if they're like, oh yeah, you know, I need some marketing for my church. Well, this is a person who actually does marketing, not just talks about marketing, that you can build a relationship and connect with afterwards. So that's why it's not just an event, but it's an opportunity for people to connect with the experts who can help them to take their church to the next level.
Now can you talk just a little bit about that, how important it is for pastors, ministers, church leaders to be able to understand that dynamic? Because I've said this, that many pastors, ministers, they have the theological down. They got that down on lock. But when it comes to the organizational structure, the organizational, kind of being to movement and be able to do those things on that side, they need that guidance. They need that be able to kind of understanding. How important is that for for the pastors to be able to attend for that very reason, so that they can understand the shift that we were just talking about, that shift that's going on, because there has to be a shift and an understanding when it comes to that, and it's more specifically when it comes to the church and what they need to do and how to be able to handle it. How important is that for pastors?
It's extremely important.
Yeah.
So, I've been doing church growth consulting for about 3 years now. I've had my
Okay.
consulting firm for 15 years and
Okay.
focused primarily on small businesses and nonprofits. And then I had some churches through pastors that connected with that reached out and wanted me to come in and use the skills that I used to grow businesses and nonprofits to help them with their churches.
Right.
And I think that what those pastors were able to see is that sometimes bringing in an outside voice helps to expose some things that you don't see every day because you're in the day-to-day of it. And it also helps to bring in new ideas. And it helps your members to see that, the thing that the pastor may have been preaching and teaching about for the past 2 years, that it's actually valid. Someone else comes in and reinforces that. And so, with the work that I do, I specialize in bringing the pastoral and the congregations together on a common vision. And that was, one of the things I also thought was important when we're looking at speakers are, people who have some type of faith background, because so often when you bring in consultants or professionals that don't have a faith background, there's a little tension because the church doesn't really operate the way the world operates.
Right.
And so sometimes we're not doing everything to make a profit. We're not doing everything, based on financial statements. Sometimes we're working purely on faith. Like, God gave me this vision and I know I don't have the money for it. I know that I can't see it, but this is what God told me we're going to do. And I need someone who has faith to help me develop a plan and to trust that God is going to meet me there. So that's why that was one of the things that was important. Yeah, we've had pastors to sign up themselves as well as their ministers. We've had ministry leaders to sign up themselves as well as their team members. And I think that that's important. And that's why we had the group registration so that people can come as a team to learn, because so often one person comes and they get all these great ideas and then they go back and try to tell everything that they learned. And it's like, no, you don't have to do that. If you bring your team with you, then you all can go back and decompress and talk about, this is what can work for us. These are the people we think we need to bring in. And you need to have a budget. You need to have a budget. Like, don't think that, people should come
say
and
that
work
one more
for
time.
free. You should have a budget. Because you have to invest in ministry. And I think that that's why so many ministries don't grow, because they only want to do what they know how to do. Yeah. So instead of saying, we're going to invest in bringing in, a professional to help us, someone who's been doing this for some years, who's been doing this with different organizations, who know best practices to come in and work with us, they just try to do digital the best way they know how. They try to do marketing the best way they know how. They try to do advocacy the best way they know how. And it's like, it could be so much easier if you would just hire professionals to come in and help you.
You just said a mouthful right there, because I do the same thing, and I do with the consulting with churches. And one of the things, the difficulty that I've found, and I want you to speak to this because you come from both. You come from that business perspective and you being a reverend, so you actually are on the inside of that. Why has it been so difficult for pastors and leaders to embrace what it is that you just said? And I ask that because you have a lot of churches who as a result of what we're going through now will falter, or who have faltered and have had to close their doors because they weren't open to saying, you know what, I do need that help. I do need to bring people in. What can you say to those pastors that may be hesitant to come to a summit like this, or even hesitant to say, hey, you know what, I do need to bring in that outside consultant that can bring a fresh eye to my ministry and be able to assist me to move out into the community?
I think the biggest obstacle that people with that mindset have is they feel like if you've never pastored, you can't tell me how to pastor my church. And I hear that a lot. And I try to tell people, like, when you bring in a consultant, like, we're not coming in to tell you how to pastor your church, because the theology part is all on you. Right. But what we are helping you to understand is that your church is a business, whether you want to believe it or not. the church is a business. Yes, we have the faith part over here, but behind the scenes, like there is a business. And if you don't understand marketing, if you don't understand operations, if you don't understand change management, if you don't understand all those dynamics, you're doing yourself more of a disservice by not building up that skill set through the use of professionals than you are anyone else. And at the end of the day, because this is a spiritual work, like God is going to hold you accountable to that. Because if he's placed you in position to have access to professionals who can help you, but because of your own ego, you choose not to accept that help, because if you can't do it, if you don't know it, if you can't teach the people, then they just won't be taught. Like, how do you reconcile, like, you know, what God feels about that? Does God say, oh, well, you know, if I didn't bless you with the gifts, then forget all these other people that I did bless with gifts. Like, you don't need them. If you don't have it yourself, then, then the people just don't need it. Like, you know, and that's why we're the body of Christ, because we all have different skills. And I think that we have to get out of the mindset that if one person can't do it, then it just doesn't get done. We're supposed to be working as a team. Everybody bring their gifts to the table, and then we work together to build up the body.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say it like this, and I ask pastors, and for the pastors that are listening, watching, I call it a new approach to sin, and I call it, it's not SIN, it's CIN, which is the commitment to impacting the needs of your community. How committed are you to impacting not just your congregation, but the needs of that community that you are a part of? Because as you and I both know that the backbone of the community is the church. That is that one place that people come together on a weekly basis, you know.
Or they should.
Right, or they should, right. Yeah, they should be.
Yeah, and a lot of churches like don't have like that sense of they don't have that reputation in their communities because they're not working outside of their four walls.
Right.
Everything that they do is so insulated, and to make the members happy and to make the members comfortable, that they've forgotten about the community that they're supposed to serve. And so the community doesn't even see them as a part of the community. The community sees them as an intrusion. Like, you're somebody where people are coming in on Sunday, they're taking up the parking spaces, they're, you know, parking in front of our driveway, and we don't, like, we've never talked to you, we've never seen you. And now, even with this digital space, we have to start to translate, like, now you're filling up my timeline with all your videos and all your, so like, but what are you doing to actually build relationship and to connect with me so that I want to watch the videos, so that I want to be a part of your ministry?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and that's key. I think that's key for and key for the church, not just the church, the individual churches, but the church as a whole, building those relationships, because the communities become stronger when you have all of those dynamics of the community and the backbone of it, or the kind of the foundation of it being that church in there, because the church is connected to the family. I look at it like this: the church is connected to the families. It's connected to the educational system. It should be connected to the government officials that are a part of that community. It should be connected to the businesses in that community. And when all of those pieces come together with with that stronghold, the community, I promise you, that community, when you see that, I guarantee you that community is a strong community and and it is flourishing. So
exactly
what we just said, saying that we just talked about the pastors. What do you hope that the attendees will come away with from at the end of the summit, after we've had that last amen from closing out? What do you want them to walk away with from the summit?
Oh, I want them to walk away with connections and a desire to do the work. So I say, rethinking church is where the spiritual, the practical, and the academic come together together to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm hoping that people will develop the relationships. And that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about the platform that we're using, is because there's a feature in there where you can chat with other attendees. You can have video meetings with other attendees. And I really want the people who are attending to be intentional about building relationships with people who can help them with their ministry. We will also be working on 10 social impact issues following the summit. So the summit is actually the launch pad for the work that we're going to do forward. So I'm hoping that people will also come away inspired to do this work with us, so that it's not just, oh yeah, you know, we're part of this great summit, but like, wow, like we're part of this great summit and we want to do additional work with these people that we've met, so that we can take some of these ideas back to our church and implement them.
Absolutely, and absolutely, and that's the way that it should be, because you should come away. And I've said this, that you should come away from a summit, a conference, or anything like that with a plan of action, and then those things that you can use immediately to be able to take you to your next level, whatever that next level may be. And when you come to summits like this, that should be what you gain. You should come with, like you said, if you're coming with your, not just you, but you're coming with your, you know, with your staff and everything like that, you can then sit down with them and say, hey, let's put this plan of action together for us that fits us. We've gotten the overall things that we need, but now let's kind of fine tune it to how it fits us, and how we will be able to implement the strategies that we've come away with. So I think that's phenomenal, and I like that 10 social impact issues. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
You gonna say something?
And the churches are smart. Like, I will say, like, this is the ideal time to hire consultants, because you don't have to pay our travel fee. You don't have to pay our hotel fee. So right now, like, you can get consultants to come in and do virtual training with your church. And it's less expensive, because we're not having to travel, and we're able to do more projects. So like, before COVID is over and everything opens back up and you're having to, like I'm just being honest, like, you know, people right now have access to so many more people than you would have access to when you're having to bring people into your church. Yes, you're going to have to spend some money, but I guarantee you it's not going to be as much money as you would spend if you were paying for my travel.
Tell it. And that's one of the things that people, that, you know, that you hope that the church will understand and will realize, and just how important this is, because it is, I know, just like it's your goal, your mission, your assignment to make them better, to make churches better. That's mine as well. And that is wholeheartedly what I know I work towards, is making every church better, so that they can actually do the work that God has called them to be able to do for the kingdom and everything like that. So let's talk a little bit about some of the topics that will be covered at the summit. What can people expect to learn from being at the summit? What are some of those topics that we're going to be talking about?
Well, we tried to organize the summit so that it wouldn't be like just random information all over the place. So on Tuesday, we are focusing on church administration, Christian education, and funding resources. So that's going to be more of the operational topics. On Wednesday, we're focusing on marketing and digital discipleship and branding. So if that's your jam, like all day Wednesday, we're going hard on that. On Thursday, we're focusing on advocacy, evangelism, and social justice. And then on Friday is dedicated specifically to mental health and self-care. And the great thing is the attendees will be able to go back and watch the sessions that they missed, or if you just want to go back and watch, you know, again, to glean more information. However, one of the advantages to participating live is you actually get to interact with the speakers during their presentations. And I can't stress how important that is, because you get to ask questions, you get to connect with other people who are in that space through like the chat feature. You can see who else is in that space. So it's really about developing relationships with the speakers as well as the other attendees who are interested in the same thing that you're interested in. But we tried to break it down so that it wouldn't be like, oh, wait, we're doing this today, we're doing that. Because I believe like people need to focus. And so we tried to focus those topics.
And that's awesome, the way that you have it segmented out like that, and you're dealing with one specific idea on a particular day, so that the attendees know exactly what they're going to be, what their focus should be, like you said, and what they're going to be talking about, and all of those things fall right in line for that day, and how, just how important that is. So that is I think that's a really great key for people to be able to understand that. And for those that may be attending that haven't been a part of this type of virtual experience, I think it's excellent, because like you said, you get to go into, it's not just coming and seeing somebody talk like this right here, but you actually get to interact with individuals, because you can actually, the platform that's being used is one that you can go into those sub-segments of, of rooms and everything like that, and have that one-on-one, or like you said, to do some networking, to be able to do some some personal conversations and everything like that. And people can come away with, like you said, developing relationships, because I've said this: relationships equal resources.
Yes. Yeah.
Relationships equal resources. So for those that will be attending, you certainly want to start those relationships, because those relationships could lead to certain resources that you may need, that someone else maybe need. And that's why I call these types of events the be in the room events. They are be in the room events, because it's you never know who you're going to meet being in these kinds of rooms. So how important that is for everyone. So who are some of the speakers that will be at the summit?
Oh my goodness. So we have 60 speakers. And when I saw that question, I was so nervous, because I can't list
how many speakers
60
again?
And I don't want anybody to feel like, oh my God, she didn't call my name. But we have just an amazing group of speakers. I will highlight our keynote speakers. Of course, we have Dr. Teresa Fry Brown on Tuesday. We have Dr. Howard John Wesley on Wednesday. We have Dr. Miguel de la Torre on Thursday. We have Dr. Mitzi Smith on Friday. We have business owners. We have deans from colleges. We have a college president. We have pastors. We have people who, just looking at the page, I had to, once we set up the page, I called my mom and I was like, Mom, look at the page, look at all of these just amazing people who have signed on to be a part of this project. So y'all have to go look yourself, because I'm not going to start calling out, because I love all of my presenters. I'm not even going to start calling out names, but once you go and you look at their profiles and you look at the work that they're doing. So these aren't just people who are talking about it or theorizing, but when you go and you look at their Facebook pages, you look at their websites, you're like, wow, these people are serious about what they're bringing to the table. And if you don't feel inspired, yes, I want to be a part of this, then I don't know what else to tell you. I got nothing else to say. I put it all out there. Me and my co-host, and I have to mention my co-host, Quinta Ellis Parmley. She works behind the scenes. She doesn't want to do all of this stuff, but she is my rock. She's my prayer partner. She is the one who said yes before all of this came to the forefront. And I could not be here without her. And we are actually giving away 4 grants on Thursday. So thank you to everyone who applied. Some of the grants, I was just humble, because I'm happy that you all thought we had that much money, but we don't. But we're going to get there. But we do have 4 recipients that will be receiving funding for ministry and technology projects. So we are very excited about that component as well.
That's awesome. That is truly, truly awesome. All right, now I got a tough question that I gotta ask you, okay?
Okay.
I keep it real, and I keep it real about the church, because I believe that wholeheartedly that the church needs to be accountable for what we say, what we do, because we represent the King of Kings. So we can't be half-stepping when it comes to him and his name. I ain't saying our name, I'm saying his name.
Right.
But how does the church remain relevant in this current environment that we're in, and how does that fit into rethinking a church, the virtual summit?
Yeah, and I think that that's a great question. So I think that in the past, people segmented their lives. So their work life was separate from their personal life, that was separated from their church life. And I think in the past, at least 20 years, people have been looking for a way to live holistically. So when you start thinking about people talking about, I need work-life balance, I need everything in my life to work together. I don't want to be one person over here and someone else over here. I need everything to work together. And I think that the churches who have been seeing success are the churches who are able to holistically address the issues that people are dealing with. And that's one of the reasons that we're doing this rethinking, is because churches have to be able to minister to the whole self. Like, you can't just minister to my spirit and my financials are out of order. You can't just minister to my spirit and I see Black and brown bodies being killed. You can't minister to my spirit and I don't have any food to eat. So that's why these topics are so important, because we're starting to look at the fact that people are wondering, you know, if there are people sleeping on the street, where is God in the midst of all of that? And why is my church not doing anything to address that issue? If there are children in cages, where is God in that? And why is my church not involved in those conversations? So I don't think the church can any longer just, you know, say, you know, well, just pray about it and, you know, God's going to make a way. No, like, we are the way that God is making. We are the blessings that people are praying for. And so when we talk about faith and works, ministry is our work. And so your church, you may not be able to have a food pantry and save the homeless and have a coat closet, but you all can come together and say, what is the most pressing issue in our community? And how can we partner with other organizations? Because you can't do it by yourself, but how can you partner with other organizations to have an impact? So not doing toxic charity where you're just giving away free stuff, not just doing service where you're giving people stuff and then you're going into the church and leaving them outside, but how can you have an impact in people's lives to the point where they want to come and be a part of your organization? Too many people don't want to come into our churches because we're not having an impact outside of the church.
Say that
so
again.
That's what this whole rethinking is about. Is like, you know, how do we take ministry beyond just the worship? Because worship is wonderful. Like, we have to have worship. We have to praise God because He is the source of everything. But after the worship, after the praise, what are we doing? And are we doing it in excellence? Absolutely. Because too often, like, we're doing it, but you half-heartedly doing it because your people haven't been discipled. So they're doing it when they feel like it, how they feel like it. But are they doing it in excellence to the glory of God? Absolutely. And so that's where we are.
that is for, I mean, and you nailed that, because that is the absolute very thing that I believe that the church needs to understand, and hopefully that they do understand. And by doing those things, exactly what you just talked about, you remain relevant. Because I was having a conversation, I think, the other day, and because I'd heard that people were saying, well, how are churches keeping connected to their members with them not being able to assemble actually in the church? So what are they doing? What are churches doing to be able to stay connected? Because you have some smaller churches that may not have had the virtual connection that already lined up that some of the other churches had. So these are things that they should be doing in order to be able to keep connected, and then, like you said, to be able to even grow what it is that they're doing and everything like that. So I think there's, and it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter the size of your church. You do what you have the capacity to do, as my pastor said before. You do what you have the capacity to do. And what you'll find is, as you work to your capacity, that capacity expands. because
Mm-hmm.
it begins to nourish and grow. I don't know any place that you can, that people find nourishment, that they find fulfillment in, that they don't want to come back to, and not only want to come back to, but they're gonna tell other folks about it. What the woman at the well say? She said, "Come see a man that not only told me about
Yes,
myself, but
yes,
I want y'all to get some of what he
exactly.
gave to me." So
Yes.
when the church does that, it can't help but remain relevant and can't stay relevant. Go
Yes,
ahead,
and that's
Rob.
what I tell people, because when people think about church growth, they always think about, let's go bring new people in.
Mhm.
But my thing is, like, if you're not meeting the needs of the people that you already have, it
Mm.
doesn't make sense to bring more people in, because they don't want to sit and bleed together.
Right.
So if you're not healing the ones that you already have, like, why are you going to bring more people into the trauma unit?
Right.
Like, you really have to, once you start to heal the people that you have, they're going to bring other people like them to come in and get healed. And then you're not going to have to do all these gimmicks to try to get new members, because people will naturally and organically be attracted to what you're doing because they see the purpose and their life is being impacted by it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
And one of the things I'm so excited about with this whole digital space, and I think I've been teaching and preaching on this for at least 4 years, is that I really feel like this technology and digital age has given us the opportunity to fulfill the Great Commission for the first time in the history of civilization. Because the Great Commission said, go and make disciples of all nations. And before, if you didn't have a travel budget, if you couldn't get on planes and go all over the world, there was no way that your ministry could make disciples of all nations. But now with technology, we have the opportunity to share the gospel globally. And this week, we got registrations from ministers in Africa who are going to be a part of the Rethinking Church Virtual Summit. And that made my heart just rejoice, because we are actually working toward fulfilling the Great Commission, where we are sharing the gospel and the work with all nations.
Absolutely.
We're on that path. And that's what people have to start to realize, is like, it's not just about your little slice of the world, but you have the opportunity to have a global impact through your ministry when you start to think about the work that you're doing. Not that they're going to become a part of your church, but you can share, like, okay, we have this food closet and this is how we're doing it. And someone who might be in Australia might see what you're doing and say, wow, that's a great idea. Let me connect with you and see how we can do it. Or you can connect with someone who's in Britain and say, wow, like, that's a great idea. Let's see how we can do that in America. Like, we have so much opportunity using this digital space to have a greater impact than we've ever imagined having.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the how God works. I'll put it that way, because
Yes.
he is such a big God that we can't, whether it's in business or with the church, you can't we can't constrain God to thinking to being small. He gave us that commission, like you said, for a reason. He didn't tell you just to go talk to your neighbor.
Talk to your neighbor.
Right, just talk to your neighbor. He said he wants his word to be spread throughout the nations, because what he tells us, that if he be lifted up, he'll do all the drawing. All we got to do is say his name.
Yes.
We say his name. He said, I'll do the rest. You say my
Yes.
name, I'll do the rest of it. That's all we have to do. So by being in space, these virtual spaces, and doing those things, like you said, we do what he's commissioned us to do. So with that being said, what does the church need to be rethinking about? It's the Rethinking Church Summit. What do they need to be rethinking about?
So in the Rethinking Church Facebook group, one of the how do I say this? So one of the issues that I've seen that's been really prevalent, that the church needs to do a better job of thinking about, is the trauma that the church has inflicted in people's lives. And how do we stop being toxic environments? Because just the level of hurt. And I'm so grateful to the people in the group who've been transparent about some of their experiences. And I don't think that a lot of church leaders have a real understanding of how not necessarily their behaviors, but some of the things that they allow to happen in the church is affecting the people who are in the congregations. And those stories just like break my heart when I see people sharing. And I'm blessed that the people who are sharing have been able to overcome and stay connected to their ministries, but there are so many people who have not been able to overcome and who have left church or who have left the ministry. And those are the lost sheep. And we know how God feels about his lost sheep. And so I really would like for leaders to think about the sheep that are being slaughtered by them allowing toxic behaviors to happen in the church. And how do we stop the slaughter? Because when we're the ones allowing the sheep to be slaughtered, that blood will be on our hands. And there's no way that you can believe that God is not counting his sheep. And he's not taking into consideration how many sheep are being lost because of our behaviors in the church. So I really just want people to think more deeply, just are we not only being who God has called us to be, but are we holding other people to account to be that? And that doesn't mean that you gotta be, super holy and you gotta, speak into, like, it's not about behaviors, but it's about your attitude and your heart. Are we encouraging people to have a good heart and to have a changed attitude so that they treat others well? Because almost every church I've gone to, when I start talking about, everybody knows you got that one nasty member in the church. Every church knows who that person is. And it's a shame that no church has ever been like, no, we don't have that person. And so it's like, how, and usually like that person is turning off so many people. And that may not be happening in the digital space, but as we look at how we do church forward, like we really just have to, eradicate those attitudes through love. And some of it is through counseling, like, really asking like, well, who hurt you to make you want to hurt other people? Exactly. What happened in your life that, you have such a bitter heart, and how can we get you help and healing? Rather than just, saying, oh, well, that's just how Sister Susie is. No, that's not how. If Sister Susie been in the church for 30 years and she's still raising hell and being mean to people, her heart hasn't changed, and that's a problem.
And you got me laughing because when you said that about the mean and nasty person, and that's the very person that's an usher that's on the hospitality.
Right. And that's not okay. It's not. Yeah, it's not okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. And we really have to, be honest about addressing it. And I've heard pastors say, well, this person, is one of our top tithers, and this, and it's just like, so is that what you think God is gonna, judge you for? Like, I want people to like think about, what does God care about? Like, so much of the stuff that we try to hold people to standards for, like one of the posts was about skirt lengths. Like, I wear short dresses and short skirts sometimes. And I really don't believe that when I get to heaven, God is going to be like, you can't get in because one day, like, you wore a skirt that was like mid-thigh length. Like, I really think he's going to want to talk about, what was my ministry like? Did I have an impact on people's lives? Did I lead any people to him? And sometimes we go through things that God is using to attract people. So just because someone is wearing like 6-inch heels, you don't know how many young ladies who also wear 6-inch heels that person is attracting to your ministry. So we get so caught up in what people look like that we don't recognize sometimes God is using that to attract other people. Just because you don't see it and you don't understand it doesn't mean that God isn't in it. So yeah, you can correct people, but just love people and let God work on the rest.
Absolutely. And the church has to understand too, like you said about the church hurt, it has to be addressed. You can't just sweep it under the rug. You can't ignore it. You can't stick your head in the sand and try and say, oh, well, it's not, no, that's not happening in my church. Well, even if it's not happening in your church, it doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be addressed. Doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be talked about. Because in talking about it, you ensure, or you can assist in that not happening, because it has an effect. And you do have, like you said, it's a lot of people out here hurting from the church because of the church. A lot of folks that won't come to church because of that, or were in church and left the church as a result of what happened to them inside the church. So it has to be talked about. It has to be addressed, and it may be ugly. And as pastor before, his name is Pastor Charles Booth, that passed away, but he was one of the pastors that I loved. And one of his sermons, and I forgot the title of the sermon, but in the gist of it, in the beginning, he said, somebody's in a mess. Mm-hmm. He said, but what you do is you have to bring it to God and say, Lord, it stinks, but we need to clean it up. And that's the attitude that the church has to have about the church hurt. It stinks. Yeah. It's not pretty. It's not going to be pretty. But the only way that you get to healing is you have to deal with the issue and that foundational issue of it. Like you said, sister, I forget, it was Sister so-and-so.
Susie.
Sister Susie, that's hurting. There's a reason why she's hurting, and that she hasn't dealt with it for 30 years. What the question should be, why is it? Why hasn't she dealt with it? And why hasn't her church? If they see it, then they should be, somebody should pull Sister Susie aside. You ain't got to do it in public or none of that.
Exactly.
Sister Susie, let's talk. Let's sit down and have a conversation.
And that's why we have a mental health day, because I also want to connect pastors with professionals who are doing this work, because just because you're a pastor, if you haven't taken pastoral counseling, if you don't have a degree in counseling people, because that's a whole other bucket. And sometimes people need professional help. Sometimes people have experienced trauma in their own lives that they need professional help to deal with. And we need to connect people with that help and to let them know that you can have God and a therapist.
Yes.
Like they are not, you don't have to choose. You do not have to choose. Like, again, that's why God has gifted people with, that skill set so that they can help you to work through that trauma. And then you can praise him for the deliverance that he's able to manifest through you going through those sessions. And so there are people who are doing this work and who specialize in working with churches because they understand how your faith plays a role in how you process that trauma.
So if y'all ain't ready to sign up already, if y'all ain't already there talking about where's my seat at, I'm trying to get my seat right now. I don't know what we like you said earlier. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what else to tell you. We don't know what else to tell you. Now we've given them all of this. We've talked about the speakers. We've talked about the topics. We talk about the church as a whole. Now we got to tell them how to register. Where can people go to so that they can register right now after they get off watching us right here? They can go and they can register. Where can they go to register for the Rethinking Church?
Yes, so I will post the link in the comments because I know some people, have, technology issues, but it's Rethinking Church Virtual Summit.com. We also still have scholarships available. So if you know anyone who's between that ages of 18 and 22 that you want to attend, we definitely want to have our young voices to be a part of it, because how can we think about and imagine the church of the future if we're not involving our young people? Absolutely. So so we've been able to register, some of them to be a part of the conversation. So again, this is a launch pad. This is just the beginning of the work that we're going to do. And so we're excited. I think we're close to 300 attendees so far. So I would love to get to 400. So if y'all can help me get another 100 over this weekend, I would be very appreciative. And that's just to support the work that we're going to be doing after the summit. But so go to rethinkingchurchvirtualsummit.com. You can see the speakers, you can see the topics that they're speaking on. And I'm just like, wow, God, like you really did it, because there's no way I could have done this on my own. It's nothing but the grace of God that brought all of you together. And I'm happy that you are part of this group and the conversations that we are beginning to have.
Absolutely. And that's just the beauty of the God that we serve, that we know that he can do, will do exceedingly and abundantly more than we could ask or even think.
Exactly, because if you had asked me, like I would have been like, we might get 100 people and like maybe 10 speakers. So when those applications started coming in, and just like the caliber of people who saw, the desire to be a part of this, like I was blown away. I was like, wow, like God, like you are really just amazing. And we have like bishops who are registered for the summit. We have ministry leaders of all ranks who are coming to be a part of this event. So it's just amazing to me that people are gravitating toward this movement to be a part of it. So I'm excited, and I thank God every day when I wake up, just like, wow, like this is something very special that we're about to start.
Yeah, and it really is, really true. It truly is, and I'm humbled and honored to be a part of this, and what you're doing, this movement that is going on. Because I told, I believe, I truly, honestly believe, like you, that the church, this is something that the church needs. And it is something that is going to do nothing but make the church better, and that's what it's about. It's making the church better, making people better, making our communities better, and everything. So, any parting words before we sign off to the people?
You know, the only thing I have is just a thank you. Like I'm so just grateful to every person who's registered, every person who's shared, every person who's a part of the Facebook group and engages in the discussion questions that are sharing from their heart, every person who's coming to, you know, learn from the summit and to share with everyone. Like there are so many different events and so many Facebook groups and so many opportunities that people have. So I don't take it for granted that you all want to be a part of this event and these conversations. So I just want to say thank you to everyone on behalf of myself and Quinta. I know she would echo my sentiments. Like we're just really grateful to everyone. And thank you for having me to come and have this discussion with your listeners. It's been wonderful just to share from my heart what this means. I think like I've been posting stuff and talking about it, but I don't think I really had a chance to share from my heart what this summit means to me and what I hope that it will accomplish going forward. So thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely, it's been my pleasure, and just I mean, I was just thinking the other day, I'm like, man, we should do a Facebook Live about the event to let people know the importance of it. Like I said, and then and your passion and your love for it is exuding from you. I can just see you beaming. It's like a mother with their child. They are so proud of it, and you should be. And it is going to be. I know this event is going to be phenomenal. Like I said, it's one of those be in the room events, and it's one of those that I know that God is looking down and He's smiling. He's like, yeah, they're my babies right there.
Yes, that is the prayer. That is the prayer.
So let's one more time. Let's give the where people can go and register, and then we'll sign off to everybody.
Yes, so it's Rethinking Church Virtual Summit, and there are actually two registration options. I forgot to mention that.
Okay.
So you have a regular registration if you just want to attend, and then we also have the think tank registration. So that is if you want to be a part of the conversations in the afternoon to work on one of those 10 social impact issues. And I don't have the list in front of me, but just a couple. We're looking at food deserts, we're looking at childcare deserts, voter education, post-slave traumatic syndrome, women in ministry leadership, economic empowerment. So we have 10 issues that we've identified, and the think tanks will be coming together to have discussions around how can we create tools, resources, and models that we can share with ministries who want to have an impact in those different areas. So we have people who are signed up for the think tank. So that was another like kind of just like, yeah, like I think this would be a great idea. And people are like, yes, like I'm signed up. I want to be a part of it. So like that also just made my heart go like, really? Like y'all are excited. And so people are excited to do the work because these are the people who want to do the work after the event. And we're going to start working on securing funding for the think tank. So as they develop these models, we want to have the financial resources for churches who say, yes, I want to have a child care center. So how do we help to fund a child care center for their ministry? Or churches who are interested in cooperative grocery stores, how do we help to fund the model to bring that to your community? So that's a part of the next step as well.
That's powerful. That is so powerful. And like I told you, it's something that is awesomely needed because you have a lot of people that that want to talk, but
Right.
after the talking, what are you? My thing is always, what are you doing?
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
that,
yeah,
the Bible says faith without works is dead. So you can have all the
exactly.
faith you want, but if you ain't working, putting in that
Right.
work, it's futile.
It ain't like, what's the point?
It means absolutely nothing. So again, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come in and talk with us about the Rethinking Church virtual summit that's coming up. What's the dates again?
July 21st through the 24th. Next week we kick off. So I think we're like 4 days away, 3 or 4 days.
Something like that. Yeah, just about. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 days. I know, like my days are running together. Yeah, so I'm just like, oh my God, like I can't believe like this is actually like about to happen. Like all the planning, all the hard work, and so now I'm just getting all the people who have registered already into the virtual platform. Everyone who's seen the platform, like they're so excited. They're creating their profiles, and this is a system that we will be using for our symposiums going forward. So once you create your profile, you can start building connections, and we'll be working. So
Absolutely. So this is it, y'all. Like I told you, y'all know what it is. It's about impact. And this is 2020, y'all. We don't stop. That the coronavirus is real. It's out there, but I always say this: that we don't stop. God's movement does not stop. We may have had to not be in the buildings, but God's word is not confined to a building. That means it goes wherever we go, because we are the church.
we
So
are.
that means whatever platform that we're on, that is where the church is, and we have to understand that. So this is 2020, fast and furious, moving with purpose and passion. And as I always say, chase the impact, because when you chase the impact, you change the world. And Reverend LaKesha Womack is changing the world with the Rethinking Church Virtual Summit next week. Y'all don't want to miss it. So we'll talk to y'all next time. We'll see y'all next time. We appreciate y'all tuning in.